Welcome to Irregular Odes. I'm James Rendell and I'm a photojournalist. This is Tim Wilson, the former Australian Human Rights Commissioner between 2014 and 2016, giving the Isabelle Lake Lecture at the University of Western Australia. Tim Wilson is an Australian former politician and a member of the Liberal Party of Australia, who served as the federal member for Goldstein in the Australian House of Representatives from 2016 to 2022. Wilson served as the chair of the Standing Committee on Economics from 2018 to 2021 and as the Assistant Minister to the Minister for Industry, Energy and Emissions Reductions from 2021 to 2022. In the 2022 Australian federal election, Wilson lost his seat to independent candidate Zoe Daniel. Before entering politics, Wilson was a policy director at the Institute of Public Affairs from 2007 to 2013. In March 2024, Wilson won the Liberal Party's pre-selection for the seat of Goldstein in the upcoming election, which will be held on or before the 22nd of September 2025. We hope you enjoy this video. Please like, share, subscribe and comment down below, and go to the website carearwen.org to see photo archives.
Also, I think was highlighted the hope that we have in terms of creating policy, but also the nexus between policy and attitudes and values and love. And I think the hope is that we have all come here tonight. That is one step along the road. So thank you all for joining us tonight. And this is that time of the evening that is very important because we'd like to have your input as well. So if you have questions, then please feel free to ask those questions now or make comments.
So when will we come under one legislation that supports all of us, no matter what state we live in?
Well, this is a consequence of the structure of the Federation, which on many levels I am a very big supporter of federations, that's not ambiguity. The issue is around the nature and the structure of the systems you work in. But what I can tell you what we're trying to do about this, because there is huge inconsistency depending on which state you are around the laws that operate. Tasmania and the federal law is pretty much equivalent. That's because Tasmania was the last state to change its laws. And because it was the last one to change its laws, it was also the one that was able to build off the learnings of what the other states did. And so part of what we're doing, what will come out in our report that's coming shortly, is to go through and look at the differences between the state laws and where they exist. Because by and large, the reasons there's a difference between the laws in each state has nothing to do with malice or wishing to discriminate against one group or another or not cover one group or another. It's largely a consequence of when they were passed. So if they're introduced in the 80s, you'll get one type of law. If they're introduced in the 90s, you'll get roughly the same type of law there. And if they're done later, as Tasmania and the federal ones were, they're completely different again. And we're hoping that by highlighting the inconsistencies between the two of them and between the different standards in different states, which don't make any obvious or have any compelling reason behind them, that we'll be able to seek a degree of harmonisation between them so that you can have protection in every state. But it also highlights the importance of working sometimes with unlikely allies, because I don't know the particular attitude of the West Australian or the Queensland government or various different states towards their current laws and the capacity for change. But you need parties from across the spectrum to advocate for change so these don't turn into hot button political issues. And that's where I would hope that I'd be able to make a contribution in this state. And I'm more than happy to work with you very directly. I know it's your turf. But I think there really needs to be a bright light shone on the inconsistencies between laws, because they're not reflecting the expectations of the public anymore either. I think most people think that whether it's gender identity or sexual orientation issues, they're actually covered by laws. I think most people are surprised by that. And the more we shine a light on the inconsistencies, I think the more there's a compelling case for change. At least because you get these rather bizarre situations where, depending on the type of system you work in, and depending on which industrial relations system you're covered by, whether it's state or federal, you get these very bizarre situations where the person standing next to you on a like job can be covered and you're not. And the practical reality is that, I think the entire federation needs to be reformed, and most of it, I think, needs to be more power back to the states. But there are some things which have the world has moved on from, and commerce and the operations of commerce or providing of services is no longer a strictly geographical thing based on a small community, and we need to operate in a much larger world. Most of the solution is around changing the federal laws. That is the primary objective, because if you address that, then any inconsistency between the states and how, I don't know the specific provisions in each state law, but they become simply absurd. And that's where my focus is going to be on. Because, and I said in the lecture, I find the idea that the law and government breaks resilient families and marriages apart nothing short of objectionable. It's literally almost a form of insanity to me. At least because if you believe in the enduring importance of the greatest private social welfare system ever devised, which is marriage, and people are happy to stay together and against tests which, let's face it, some relationships wouldn't survive. Why you would seek to break those up for the pointless purity of saying marriage is between a man and a woman does not make any sense to me. It does nothing to give longevity and credibility to the institution of marriage. It does nothing for the families who are in that situation. It provides no social, no economic, or no community or cultural benefit. And that is why it needs to be tackled. But I would say exactly the same thing about why same-sex couples deny access to marriage. Because I keep saying to people, the fact that same-sex couples want to be married is the ultimate conservative victory. You literally have people outside traditionally of social norms wanting to enter stable bonds and be held to the same standard as everyone else. I do not understand. I can understand 20 or 30 years ago the world was different, people had different viewpoints, but we've got past the whole idea about whether we think homosexuality is acceptable or not. Yes, there will always be some people in the community who will never change their mind on that. But why you would stop people entering a stable social contract between two parties that provides a foundation for themselves, their dogs, if they have children, everybody else, social, economic, cultural benefit, is beyond me. And that's why it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed because of the impact it has on trans people. To be brutally honest, this is kind of outside of my responsibilities as Human Rights Commissioner. But if you're still interested in my opinion, I'll offer it. I don't think you'll necessarily like it. The reality is this highlights to me the fundamental problem of the structure in which we finance universities. I'm a big fan of deregulation, and it's not for some sort of grand ideological reason, though that is a part of it. The reason is because where people are both capable and able to pay for services, and we offset it through fee help and everything else, people should do so. I think there are lots of social broader challenges we have as part of that in people's capacity to progress their career and everything else. But where that's possible, should do so. At least because what it leaves left available is money to subsidise those sectors which may not be financially viable. And I suspect, I don't know, because I haven't crossed the detail of what's happening in the arts department at UWA, that's part of the challenge, the degree of interest and the cost structures around it. So. But that's kind of beyond my brief as Human Rights Commissioner, so that's a personal comment. Well, part of the point of my lecture was to say that you can do things in law, and we talked about what we need to do in terms of state law, but a lot of those things sit well beyond law. And one of the things that in our consultations and my engagement since having this office is the structural rigidity and conservatism, I mean in the bad sense rather than the good sense, of the medical community. It's problematic with intersex Australians where, putting it bluntly, babies are still born, they might have one or different components of genitals, and they decide then and there that it's in the best interest of the child to have a particular designation without any respect for their rights, their choice, or what's in... Sorry, I've no doubt they're motivated by their best interest, but what is their choice? But that is equally true for a lot of the issues faced by trans people. And this is why I say, yes, you can change the structures and Medicare and everything else. It's very important, and de-genderise them so that people get access to the assistance. But that assumes that there's the support and assistance that's there. Anyone who's gone through gender reassignment will know there's complete paucity in the surgical sense, complete paucity in the number of surgeons who are able to assist with that. Let alone in the mental health area, which of course is consistently one of the most important areas that isn't given enough attention particularly towards transgender people. Last year we were up in Broome talking to young Aboriginal kids who were questioning their gender and also their mental health practitioners that work within that community. And they come in out of town through different parts of the Kimberley, and nobody was there with the knowledge or education or qualifications to assist them. They could help them with alcohol and various other things, but not with issues around gender dysphoria, and even to a certain extent around sexual orientation. But it was worse than that. They didn't even know who to refer them on to. Because in practice, what we're going to have to do is essentially go back to the entire existing profession and educate them about these issues, because they've never been taught them. And so that's where a lot of my focus is. While law is important, it's that next step of going beyond law and trying to reverse educate an entire workforce, whether it's in mental health or whether it's in the practice of teachers and how to deal with kids who present and have issues around their sexual orientation or gender identity, so that they can give the support they need, and if they can't, that they can then go on and tell them who can provide them with support. And that's not going to be easy. I know that's what some people are doing in the space at the moment with aged care facilities, where of course a lot of people who work in aged care facilities weren't born in Australia. I don't say that in any way to criticise them or anything like that, but they also weren't educated in Australia, and their cultural values can sometimes be very different from what we might accept in 21st century Australia. And going through and reverse educating that population is presenting its own very significant challenges to make sure that whether it's same-sex couples or transgender individuals or couples are treated equally and fairly at what is often one of the most vulnerable periods in people's lives. So what you can do, well, there's lots of things you can do. I hope I'm presenting with some of the challenges, and you can think about how you might best be able to contribute to that. But I think as much as anything else, one of the best things that individuals can do in the end is provide that actual support that you're providing to young kids who've gone through broadly the same experience as yourself. If my colleague Liz Broderick is right about how you can't be what you can't see, people need role models. And I think this is particularly scarce in the LGBTI space. Particularly scarce that people can look up to people they can relate to and feel confident, optimistic about what their life is. It still, to be quite frank, depresses me that that entire project that was run out of the United States, the It Gets Better project, was focused on basically, if you just survive school, your life might be okay. And too often, and I'm not trying to criticise any individual or what they've achieved in their life, please don't think it, but when you look at a lot of the national role models in the LGBTI space, they often come out at the end of their careers, whether it's broadly in the public sense, Michael Kirby or Ian Thorpe. Obviously he's quite younger, but he has a particularly unique career. And we're still sending this really disturbing message, I think, to younger Australians, that you can have a successful life and then you can be yourself later. Rather than saying they work so constructively with each other. Daniel Kowalski, another swimmer who came out when his career ended, said that he thought that his performance in the pool was actually stunted because he wasn't honest about who he was, and he would have been a better swimmer. Those are the messages I think we need to be sending out a lot more. So the work you're doing on a one-to-one relationship, you cannot discount its value. It can save lives, because too often, and all the data shows it consistently, the rates of risk of suicide, particularly amongst young teens who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, or intersex, is disturbingly high. And often it's the hand that's put out by people like yourselves that saves them from much more horrific, worse, and last decisions in their life.
If you enjoyed this video, please share, like, comment and subscribe. Check out our website at carearwen.org and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.